Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish. Adam Lemmerese is off this week. Tonight, we have a special guest. It's reporter from Southern Maryland News, Darryl Kinsey Jr. Darryl, Grid Network is really excited to have you on the show tonight. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I got this message. I got the message to join you earlier this week. I'm really excited to be here. I wanted to actually get a chance to talk to you for a long time. So now we're glad we're actually getting to do this right here on the program.
Yes, definitely. We're really excited to have you. Can't wait to talk a little bit of racing for you. With you. We have a packed agenda tonight. So let's get after it. Rinus VeeKay suffered an injury in a cycling accident and won't race at Road America this weekend. We'll recap the All-Star race, NASCAR. Matt White is here with the Grid World Motorsport League update, and two drivers are making their IndyCar debut this weekend at Road America. First, let's start off with the shocking news about young rising IndyCar star Rinus VeeKay. Yesterday, Ed Carpenter Racing revealed that Rinus VeeKay was involved in a cycling accident on Monday, suffering a fractured clavicle. VeeKay underwent successful outpatient surgery, but was not cleared to drive this weekend at Road America. Entering the ninth race of the season, VeeKay was fifth in points. So this setback with the injury is quite a blow to a breakout sophomore campaign. The 20-year-old Dutchman is right up there with other two young guns enjoying a strong second year in the NTT IndyCar Series. Currently 1-2 in the championship paddle award. It's his second year full-time in IndyCar, and second with Arrow McLaren SP, leads the standings by 1 point over Alex Palou. Also, another second-year IndyCar driver, minus two bad races. Rinus VeeKay has been really consistent and shown growth since last season after crashing once in practice and once in a race during his IndyCar debut weekend in 2020 at Texas Motor Speedway. VeeKay has definitely turned into a driver who could win on any given weekend. He got his first win at the IMS road course in May, qualified on the front row for the 105th run of the Indianapolis 500, led some laps in the Indy 500, and finished on the podium in race one at Detroit last weekend. Now missing Road America will basically end any championship hopes, and missing multiple races will drop him even further in the standings. Darryl, how devastating is a setback for VeeKay, knowing he could have contended for a top five finishing position in the point standings?
I think it's rough for VeeKay as he was having obviously his second year, so he was having a career year, but he was really one of the rookies, or one of the young guns rather, that I'd say, that we've been watching all season as IndyCar has been going through this transitional period from the old guard with the Scott Dixons and the Will Powers and the like to these young kids that have just come in and have been tearing it up. We know all of the accolades have gone towards Paddle Award and Alex Palou, who, as you rightly said, are leading the points right now, but Rinus VeeKay was right up there with them, and this is going to be a devastating blow for his season. He's going to drop a far way down the point since he won't race this weekend at least. He may be able to hold on to the top 10, but if this injury lingers and he's out for multiple weeks, this is going to be a good season for him. That's going to be all for naught because he'll fall into the lower half of the top 15 in points, and that is not representative of the season that he's been having.
You're absolutely right. We don't know how many races Rinus VeeKay is going to miss. We don't know if it's going to be Road America or is it going to be the races after that. And he's definitely having a breakout year, a really good season with some strong finishes, especially during the month of May when he won the Indy road course and then led laps in the Indy 500, qualifying on the front row. He's definitely showing that he's going to be a young superstar here to stay in the IndyCar series for many, many years. So this is definitely a devastating blow for his 2021 season. And Ed Carpenter Racing said VeeKay will be reevaluated prior to the race weekend at Mid-Ohio on July 4th to see if he'll be cleared to drive. His replacement on Sunday in the number 21 Chevrolet is Oliver Askew, another substitute driver for the 24-year-old American who filled in for Felix Rosenqvist in a shock return to Arrow McLaren SP in Detroit Race 2. Last year, Askew raced full-time in IndyCar, suffered a concussion, and things went downhill from there. Dominating the road to Indy, Askew was considered to be one of the next potential superstars in IndyCar racing. Last year, he got dropped from his seat at Arrow McLaren SP and replaced by Rosenqvist. With no IndyCar drive lineup for 2021, Askew decided to sign a contract to race LMP3 cars in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. And then Felix Rosenqvist got all banged up in that massive shunt in Detroit Race 1. Ironically, the team asked him to drive the same number 7 Chevrolet he got booted from. From the outside, the divorce between Arrow McLaren SP and Askew seemed pretty messy, but Askew took the high road, didn't air any dirty laundry publicly, and got a second chance with the team. He got called up late, never raced at Belle Isle before, since they didn't race in Detroit in 2020 because of the pandemic. He had a few minutes of qualifying, so very limited track time. He did a good job in the race, all things considered, on short notice, and unfortunately retired from the race due to a mechanical issue. Were you surprised Aaron McLaren SP asked Oliver Askew to fill in, considering how they parted ways last year?
To be honest, with how quiet that divorce had been, I had forgotten that all of that had happened until I was reading the script earlier today. But this just shows how you take the high road in situations like this and good things will happen. He got another chance to get in the car, even though, he was supposed to drive that car this season. Now, he didn't have the finish that was representative of his run, as he had a pretty good day on Sunday, given that he hadn't practiced. His only laps were in qualifying, and he did a pretty good job. But he is going to have another chance this week, as we'll get to at Road America, to really prove himself to the IndyCar paddock that he is worth a full-time seat.
And at Road America, Askew won't be thrown into such a difficult situation like Detroit. He'll definitely be better prepared to drive. He'll also have practice sessions and qualifying before the race. And it's not easy to spend time outside of an IndyCar for a while, strap back in, and show true competitiveness immediately. A lot of people forget he won the 2019 Indy Lights title, scored 4 wins in a row at one point, and many thought he would have a long career in IndyCar. I remember last year he told Racer.com, "Don't be surprised if my IndyCar career is over," and he was content racing sports cars if that's how it turned out for him. And flash forward to the middle of 2021, he's back in IndyCar. Aaron McLaren SB asked him to fill in at Road America, and now Ed Carpenter Racing asking him to fill in this weekend for Rinus VeeKay, and I misspoke. Aaron McLaren SP asked him to fill in at Detroit last week. And here's my question for you, Darryl. In order to prove that he belongs on the IndyCar grid full time, what does Oliver Askew need to accomplish at Road America this weekend?
To be honest, I don't think Oliver Askew can get wrapped up in all of that to try and prove himself. Well, I said that he does have the opportunity to prove himself, but he cannot go in and make that his focus. At the end of the day, he's got to bring that car home with a good finish, and trying to drive over your head to prove to everyone that you're supposed to be there could have the opposite effect if he ends up out there and makes an aggressive move and gets into an incident and finishes down the order. He just needs to focus on having a good, solid weekend, take the spots to show that you have the skills to run it. But, of course, at the same time, he's not running for points. So you can be a little bit more aggressive with the strategy, but you can't be so aggressive that it turns into recklessness, if that makes sense. So if he can get up there, have a good, productive weekend, come out with a top 10 for not being in the car, for most of this season, and then only having 2 races and having a top 10, that could raise some eyebrows and potentially get him a chance at some seats. There's talk that there might be a Penske seat open in the future, maybe at the end of the season. We'll see. He could put himself in the place to end up with a really good ride next year, but he's got to make sure that he has a decent weekend here at Road America and not make any silly mistakes.
Yes, Oliver Askew will definitely want to avoid making any of those silly mistakes. And I know he thought his IndyCar career might be over at the end of last year, but I'm going to make a bold prediction here and say that Oliver Askew is going to be back on the grid full-time in IndyCar in the future. And I believe if he goes out at Road America and does really well for Ed Carpenter Racing, he'll definitely put himself back on some teams' radars because he is a superb talent. It was really unfortunate that he only got 1 year at Aaron McLaren SP to show what he can really do. And also wanted to note that Ed Carpenter Racing is known for giving young American drivers opportunities. Remember, they brought up Joseph Newgarden, gave him the opportunity to shine. Roger Penske picked him up. Also, Connor Daly had been bouncing around a few years, unable to find a solid ride in the IndyCar grid. Ed Carpenter, since he's running all the ovals in the number 20 Chevrolet, give Connor Daly the ride on the road and the street courses. And next, some news from Supercars. With Jamie Whincup retiring from full-time Supercars competition, there's going to be an open seat at Triple Eight in 2022 alongside Shane Van Gisbergen. Some thought Chaz Mostert might be a contender for the vacant seat, but those silly season thoughts came to an end with Mostert re-signing a multi-year contract extension with Walkinshaw and Andretti United. He said the decision to re-sign with the team was a no-brainer and considers them family. So that's one big name off of the free agent market as supercars gets into that silly season time of the year. And next, gonna recap the NASCAR All-Star race that took place on Sunday night at Texas Motor Speedway. And during our NASCAR All-Star race preview on Sunday evening, we asked if advancing from the All-Star Open would be a confidence booster for drivers not having the best season so far. Two drivers who looked really strong early in the Open but crashed out together, Eric Jones and Daniel Suarez. Jones and Richard Petty Motorsports have enjoyed some strong runs this season, although sitting 25th in the point standings doesn't exactly represent the speed they've displayed. Suarez, Trackhouse, overachieving as a brand new team to the NASCAR Cup Series and an alliance with Richard Childress Racing. Definitely disappointing for those two teams to exit after to race their way in. Another driver who many thought could race his way in or at least fall back on the fan boat was Bubba Wallace. Wallace went for a spin early in the Open, 23-11 racing, just didn't have the speed on Sunday night to race their way in. The fan vote instead went to Matt DiBenedetto. Ross Chastain, Tyler Reddick, and Eric Almirola raced into the All-Star race, starting with Ross Chastain. His first full season with Chip Ganassi Racing got off to a slow start, but they're starting to put all the pieces together now with Chastain running a lot better. Tyler Reddick's had some strong finishes, good consistency, could be on the verge of getting that first Cup win at any moment now. Eric Almirola, nothing's gone right at all for him this season, to say the least. I believe he has that dark storm cloud hanging above his head, but making the All-Star race, racing his way in alone must feel like a win for him. Darryl, out of all of the drivers I mentioned, which driver still has a lot of work to do in order to get their season headed in the right direction, and who has to feel most confident advancing to the All-Star race?
We'll start that second part. We'll actually start with the first part. That is Eric Almirola. And I would extrapolate that to say the entirety of Stewart-Haas Racing. We'll focus with Eric Almirola. He did finish first and eighth in the All-Star Open in the All-Star race. But, Kobe, that was his first finishes in the top 20 since Talladega Superspeedway in May, where he finished 15th. Since then, he had finishes of 29th, 37th at Darlington and Dover, 26th at Coda, 22nd at Charlotte, 27th at Sonoma, and finished 29th at Kansas. We talked about it on the Extra Mile, which I do on Thursdays. The Stewart-Haas Racing team in general has not been good, and Eric Almirola has had one of the worst seasons of his career, currently sitting, I think, 28th in points. And this has just been a year that he's wanted to forget it. You call it storm clouds. I'll call it a storm front that has been over Eric Almirola and that entire Stewart-Haas Racing organization. But on the other side, a driver that should feel confident is Ross Chastain. You know, he did struggle a little bit at the start of the season. The finishes have been improving. Now, he did finish 37th during the Coke 600, but that was due to engine issues and not anything to do with how he was driving the car, which was really unfortunate because between that, he had two solid top 10 finishes, at a top 5 actually at Coda, and then 7th at Sonoma Raceway. Had been before that finishing consistently in the top 15, bottom half of the top 20. He has been improving since we got away from Bristol Dirt, and I think the slow start that Chip Ganassi Racing has been in, they're starting to get out of it. So I think Ross Chastain can leave that night at the All-Star race feeling pretty confident about their chances going into the second half of the regular season.
Yeah, Ross Chastain is certainly an excellent choice. I believe someone said it on Twitter on the night of the All-Star race. They said that the All-Star race was meant for Ross Chastain because in that Open, he was pulling some really wild and aggressive moves, and that's just Ross Chastain's driving style. Ross races really hard, and he said time and time again, I don't have any friends on the racetrack. I always bring them with me. And I think in order to be a successful race car driver, that's definitely the attitude that you need. And as you mentioned, it was a not a good start to the season at all for Ross Chastain at number 42 team. And then we had the two road courses come in. Circuit of the Americas had a really good run going in the rain. Also ran well at Sonoma as well. And then the race his way into the All-Star race. That's definitely a huge confidence boost for that team. And Eric Almirola, I think he has to be pleased as well to just race his way into the All-Star race because, as I mentioned, nothing has gone right for that team at all this season. As you said, Darryl, this has been the worst start to any season in Eric Almirola's career, and we know he's getting older. We don't know how much longer Smithfield Foods is gonna stay on board. So Eric Almirola could very well be on the back half of his racing career, and poor performances that could mean that your seat might be open in the future. So Eric Almirola should definitely use the momentum of making it into the All-Star race as something positive as the NASCAR Cup Series heads to Nashville Super Speedway this weekend. And with this year's All-Star race format, we saw multiple changes: 6 rounds of racing, a mandatory 4-tire green flag pit stop, inverts, a pit crew challenge during the race. Not exactly a simple format, but NASCAR tried to shake things up for the $1 million exhibition event. There was even a pre-race concert taking place during the pace laps and ending right before the drop of the green flag. So that was definitely something new for all of us. Prior to, during, and after the All-Star race, a lot of fans were very critical of the format and just the entire event in general. After seeing the entire format in action, what do you think of the All-Star race, Darryl?
How much time do I have? I will keep it simple. I did not like a lot of what I saw. And we'll start with the racing and then get back to whatever that broadcast was in a minute. This 510 horsepower package they brought out, take that and, to steal a quote from the resident Brit Matt White, chuck it in a bin. I never want to see that package again. And I used to defend the 550 horsepower package, but after Kansas, when Kevin Harvick basically had the better car and could not get past Joey Logano because of the air, I soured on that package. I saw a lot of the same things in this race on Sunday that I did not like about that race, only magnify it about tenfold. These cars need horsepower if they're going to actually make some entertaining racing. And I don't understand how NASCAR has gotten the Xfinity Series so right, and the Cup Series has been a disaster as far as the package. And I know we're talking about what's going to happen with the next-gen car. My feeling about it, I know Toyota put out that they're going to have a 670, 550 split. Use 670 horsepower for everywhere but Daytona and Talladega and call it a day. Because I'm done with the drop in the horsepower. It's not producing greater racing. Yeah, the cars are closer, but it doesn't matter if they can't make any passes, which is what we want to see. And now let's get to the package. Or not the package, let's get to the TV broadcast. And Kobe, you and I have seen the complaints on Twitter about how NASCAR has carried itself lately, how Fox has produced the program. People want the sport to take itself seriously. Everything about that All-Star race did not take itself seriously at all. The weird Sammy Hagar concert during the usual, what would be the pace laps and the driver intros, the whatever was going on the track during the driver intros, which was probably exciting for those watching at the track, but for those of us that were at home, had no idea what was going on. It was just too busy, everything. And I just wish that this sport and the broadcast partners take a page out of F1's book. Elevate this to a sport of great importance, much like how F1 does every weekend, and you may get some of these people back.
You definitely bring up a lot of good points there, Darryl. And I think that when it comes to NASCAR broadcasts, you definitely hit all major points right there. I think it should be taken very seriously instead of being presented in a I guess similar to a comedy in a way. And one thing during the All-Star race that I noticed during the pit crew challenge, we didn't know what was going on during the pit. We didn't know like what was going on during the pit stops. I thought Fox Sports was going to do something like as soon as the drivers come in that they would time all of the pit stops, and then we'd see it on the screen like who had the best pit stop, who had the worst pit stop, and all of that. And then everyone was confused, like when are we gonna find out who won the pit stop challenge and all of that. And I think if they had done that, it would have definitely helped that part. But overall, I don't really have anything else to add from everything that you've said. And looking at the action once again, Hendrick Motorsports looked very dominant. Brad Keselowski tried to challenge them late in the race, but could not clear himself for the lead. Continuing his hot streak, Kyle Larson won the All-Star race and $1 million, remaining on top as a driver to beat, whether it's a regular NASCAR points, exhibition race, or claiming victories on dirt tracks across America. Hendrick Motorsports is certainly the best team at the moment, and it seems like the first-year Hendrick driver, Kyle Larson, is the lead driver at the organization right now. How can the rest of the field stop this streak of dominant performances by Kyle Larson and the entire Hendrick Motorsports organization?
Somebody got a blue shell from Mario Kart. That's about the only way you're going to be able to slow these guys down. I don't know where this rash of speed from Hendrick Motorsports has come from, but they are absolutely dominant right now. And Kyle Larson is just been a man possessed. He went out after winning that race, getting $1 million, won a sprint car race the next day. So I don't really know how you slow down Kyle Larson at this point. He is absolutely on a tear, or Hendrick Motorsports for that matter.
Yes, definitely. Kyle Larson, Hendrick Motorsports, definitely on a tear, starting to look like the Hendrick Motorsports of old. I know people have always been asking, when is Hendrick Motorsports going to be back? When are they back? I think it's safe to say Hendrick Motorsports is officially back, and they are taking no prisoners. They have 4 drivers capable of winning every single weekend, and I'm not really sure who can catch up to Hendrick Motorsports at the moment. And now looking at some rule changes in SRX, after SRX made its debut last weekend at Stafford Motor Speedway, Tony Stewart and Ray Evernham listened to fan feedback on social media and made changes to the race format. Instead of 15 minutes, the 2 heat races will drop to 12 minutes. The starting lineup for Heat 1 will be set by a random draw, and lineup for Heat 2 will be inverted like last week. However, the big change is how the starting lineup for the feature is determined. Last week, Heat 2 results set the grid for the feature. Now the average finish of both heats will be used to determine the starting lineup for the main event. This is a way to encourage drivers to race harder instead of saving your stuff for later. Other changes include drivers being in the same color car throughout the season, well, the short 6-week season, and larger numbers and driver names on the car for the fans to have an easier time identifying each driver. This weekend's dirt feature race at Knoxville Raceway will be a 50-lap event instead of 100 laps. Next, here's Matt White with a Grid World Motorsport League update.
Hi everyone, Matt White here from the Grid World Motorsport League. It is time for another update from the Grid World Motorsport League. A new top 10, here it is for this week. No change at the very top. Nicholas Marini is still the leader, the LMP3 championship leader in the European Le Mans Series. But lots of changes below, and most of them coming from the World Superbike Championship this weekend, where top Razgat Ayoglu finally got his winning tally off to a start at Misano on Sunday afternoon in the 3rd race, and he slides into 6th in this week's top 10. Jonathan Ray did not get a win at the weekend at Misano, so he slips from 2nd to 3rd, replaced by Shane Van Gisbergen in 2nd, and he's back in action this weekend after a little bit of a break for the Repco Supercars Championship. 3 races coming from the top end at Darwin at Hidden Valley this week. Josh Cook slips out of the top 10 this week after a little bit of a lacklustre performance from him over the weekend at Snetterton for British Touring Cars. And Lewis Hamilton now finds himself in 10th position. He's never been outside a Grid World Motorsport League top 10 when he's been eligible, so if he has a poor weekend again at Paul Ricard this weekend for the Formula 1 race, then he could potentially slip out of the top 10 for the first time in 2.5 years of the Grid World Motorsport League scoring, so look out for that. Performer of the weekend this week, a 2nd and a 1st in the 2 IndyCar races at Detroit for Patricia O'Ward. What a great win that was on Sunday, coming through the field late to pick Joseph Newgarden to the victory. The only man to win now 2 races in the IndyCar Championship so far this year. He is 33rd in the standings as of now, but IndyCar back in action again this weekend at Road America. We've got a big NASCAR weekend as well, with Nashville hosting for the very first time for the Cup Series on Sunday, so we're looking forward to that. Another big weekend of scoring with F1, F3, IndyCar, NASCAR, amongst others. MotoGP back in action, of course, at the Sachsenring in Germany. So lots of stuff going on this weekend. We'll give you a full update on the scoring on next week's show.
Appreciate the update, Matt. We already talked about Oliver Askew getting the 2nd IndyCar start of 2021, replacing the injured Rinus VeeKay. However, we have 2 more drivers in the field this weekend making their NTT IndyCar Series debut. A current full-time driver from the NASCAR Cup Series and an ex-Formula One driver who'll share the track with his old Formula One teammate. Starting with NASCAR driver Cody Ware, he'll finally make his long-awaited IndyCar debut, driving the number 52 Delcoin Racing with Rick Ward Racing, Honda. Entering Road America, Cody Wares tested an IndyCar at Sebring to get his feet wet during the offseason. Then he tested on the high-speed ovals at Texas Motor Speedway in Indianapolis. At Indianapolis Motor Speedway a few weeks ago. He tested an IndyCar at Road America, so he had some laps at the track in open wheel machinery, where skipping the NASCAR Cup Series race this weekend at Nashville Super Speedway to make his IndyCar debut. And the other driver making his first IndyCar start is former Haas F1 driver Kevin Magnussen. He'll share the track with old Haas F1 teammate and friend Roman Grosjean. Last weekend at Belle Isle, both drivers reunited in person, with Grosjean racing in IndyCar and Magnussen IMSA with Cadillac Chip Ganassi racing. Grosjean had 2 disappointing days in Detroit, while Magnussen and Ringer van der Zande held off Whelen Engineering Racing to win the DPI class. Felix Rosenquist wasn't cleared to drive after last Saturday's crash, so Aaron McLaren SP chose Magnussen to replace him in the number 7 Chevrolet. Magnussen has a relationship with McLaren from his first stint in Formula One in 2015, when Magnussen was demoted from the McLaren Formula One seat to a reserve test driver role with the team in favor of Fernando Alonso. There was a possibility of him racing in IndyCar with Andretti Autosport. However, McLaren made sure that didn't happen, and Magnussen did return to Formula One full-time the next year in 2016 with Renault, followed by 4 seasons with Haas F1. Despite finding a home in IMSA with Ganassi's Cadillac DPI program this year, it has been perfectly clear for a while that Magnussen wants to be in IndyCar. During the month of May, he was hanging out at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, watching the cars make laps around the 2.5-mile speedway. Last month, he told Marshall Pruitt from Racer.com that he was definitely interested in racing in the Indy 500 in the future. Joining Ganassi's DPI team, he knows Chip has an IndyCar program. Unfortunately, there doesn't appear to be room for him at the moment. Dixon's still performing at a high level, showing no signs of slowing down. Alex Palou having a breakout season, seems to be like Ganassi's future lead driver. Marcus Ericsson having a great year, just won his first career IndyCar race at Detroit. And Jimmy Johnson has a contract in the Fort Ganassi Honda through the end of next season. Darryl, if Kevin Magnussen wows everyone this weekend at Road America, should Chip Ganassi find a way to get him into one of his IndyCars before a rival team snatches him up first?
He's going to have to find some way to put him in there, but it really depends on A, what Kevin Magnussen wants to do, and B, what are the plans going forward for Chip Ganassi Racing, especially over there with what's going on with Jimmy Johnson. We know he's running some of the races over there with that 4th car. Could there be a chance where they make a change? We know Jimmy hasn't done well, but we knew he wasn't going to do well. But does Chip make the change and put Magnussen in that car if he runs well? Or maybe Scott Dixon decides to finally hang it up. Magnussen could go there. So it makes it interesting, and it's going to be fun for all of us F1 fans to see the former Haas teammates duking it out against each other in IndyCar.
Yes, Kevin Magnussen making his debut weekend. It's going to be interesting to see how that shakes up the IndyCar silly season, because we all know there's a lot of drivers who are not currently racing in IndyCar right now who want to race in IndyCar in the future, and there's a lot of moving parts. Does Jimmy Johnson think 1 year in IndyCar is enough for him, and then that 48 will be open next season, or do we see Jimmy stay on another year to honor that contract, and then Kevin Magnussen might have to look elsewhere? That's definitely going to be something interesting to follow. And this morning, Alpine Formula One announced they've re-signed Esteban Ocon to a 3-year contract extension until 2024, keeping Ocon with the manufacturer for the next several seasons. Shows how committed they are to the French driver entering the 2021 season. A lot of folks thought Ocon's seat might be under threat from fellow countryman Pierre Gasly or one of the Alpine Junior drivers, and especially with the potential of Red Bull Junior driver Yuri Vips. On the other hand, Ocon has had a previous relationship with Mercedes, and there's been a lot of talk about the uncertainty of the futures regarding Sir Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas. When it was announced that Fernando Alonso would return to Formula One as Ocon's teammate, some wondered if he would struggle against a 2-time world champion, especially since Alonso has a history of outperforming his teammate. Comparing the two drivers, Ocon has 4 points finishes, 1 retirement after 6 races, and Fernando Alonso 3 points finishes, 1 retirement. So things are fairly even right now at Alpine. And with that, concludes another episode of Grid Tonight. Please like and subscribe to Grid Network here on YouTube. Also, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We also want to encourage you to visit our Patreon page, Invest in Grit Network. Thank you, Colin, Mark, and D. Shell, for being true Patreon supporters of Grit Network. We cannot do this without your support. And be sure to check out Paw Bless. Please consider spoiling your furry friend. They have dog leashes, clothing, and accessories for dogs of all sizes. 10% of your purchase goes towards helping homeless, sick, and rescued dogs. On Thursday morning, we have a new episode of the Women Racing to Win. Saturday, we're back for Grit Live pre-race, and Sunday, Grit Live wrap-up on a busy weekend for motorsports. For Darryl Kinsey Jr., I'm Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Joe Samaniego here. Want to invite you to go check out Pawbliss. Pawbliss is a dog clothing and accessory company based in Austria. 10% of each of your purchases goes to helping dogs in need, whether it's homeless, sick, or ill dogs. This is one of the reasons why we support it. Kiska here is a rescue dog from rural Alaska and our Grid office dog. We care about our furry buddies, and we know you do as well. Definitely check out pawbliss.com. There's a link on the video description, and by clicking on that link, you get a 10% discount on your purchase as well.